All right, strap in, everybody. Today we're going deep on power, like really deep.
Deep, dark, and maybe a little dangerous.
You got it. We're talking about Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince.
Ah, Machiavelli.
Not exactly bedtime reading, right? But we've got excerpts, some analysis to help us make sense of it all.
We'll need it. The prince is famous for a reason. It still has this power, centuries later, to make people uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like getting this peek behind how power really works, all this stuff that usually stays hidden.
It's unnerving.
Exactly. But that's why we're here. We're not here to say, hey, Machiavelli was right. We're here to understand him. Why does this book, written over 500 years ago, still matter? Still feel, I don't know.
Dangerous.
Yeah. Dangerous, but also relevant.
Well, think about Machiavelli's Italy for a second.
Okay.
Rival city-states backstabbing foreign powers, sticking their noses in everywhere.
Sounds messy.
It makes House of Cards look like a kindergarten playground. This was Machiavelli's reality, and it totally shaped his worldview. This wasn't some philosopher thinking in a comfy chair. He was in the thick of it.
So he's writing from experience, not just some theory he dreamed up.
Exactly. He even worked for the Florentine government after the Medici family got kicked out in 1494.
The Medicis. Those were like the big power players.
Yeah,
Right?
huge. Bankers, patrons of the arts, the whole deal. Anyway, they get kicked out. Machiavelli gets a job. Then, bam, they come back. He's out, starts writing The Prince. It's almost like this how-to guide based on all the craziness he'd seen.
So we've got Machiavelli out of a job watching guys like Caesar Borgia and King Ferdinand of Aragon taking power. Not exactly the nicest guys in history.
You said it. Borgia especially. Cunning, brutal, totally ruthless. But Machiavelli saw something in these guys. He called it the actual truth of matters. Basically, the truth doesn't care about being nice or playing fair.
All right, so let's dig into that, this actual truth thing. What was Machiavelli really saying in The Prince?
He's saying, forget all the fairy tales about good kings and noble rulers.
Okay.
A prince's main job, securing power, holding on to it. Being loved is fine, but being feared.
Being feared.
Yeah, that's like an insurance policy. He actually says it's better to be feared.
Wow, that's hardcore.
No, yeah, he doesn't hold back. And he uses this analogy. A prince should be like a lion and a fox.
What does that even mean?
The lion, all strength, everyone respects it, right? But the fox, that's the cunning, that's the ability to adapt. You need both to survive in this world, in this game of power. He even says straight up, a prince doesn't actually need all the good qualities, but he's got to look like he does.
So image is everything. It's all a show.
You're getting it. Machiavelli was the master of spin, way before we even called it that. He knew that perception is reality, especially in politics. It's all about how you're seen.
Okay, but this is where it gets even more interesting. Machiavelli throws this whole concept of fortune into the mix.
Yeah.
So it's not just about being tough or smart, right? There's this element of, I don't know,
Luck.
fate.
Fate.
Yeah, exactly.
He actually personifies fortune as this powerful, totally unpredictable woman.
A woman.
He even writes, get this, fortune is a woman, and if you wish to keep her under control, you have to beat her down and conquer her.
Intense, right?
Yikes. So how is any prince, even the toughest, supposed to deal with this force of nature, this woman?
Machiavelli says you got to learn to read the signs, anticipate, adapt, grab opportunities when they come, be ready when things go bad. Think of it like surfing.
Surfing.
Yeah, you ride the wave. You don't try to control the ocean. You can't.
So you're not just strong or clever, you're flexible.
Exactly. You need what he calls virtue.
Virtue. Is that like our word virtue? Because so far this doesn't sound very virtuous at all.
Good point, but it's not the same. Virtue, for Machiavelli, it's more about effectiveness.
Yeah.
Getting things done.
Even if it means bending the rules a little.
Maybe more than a little.
Right.
It's being bold, decisive, ruthless if you have to be. He actually uses Caesar Borgia, that guy we talked about, as an example.
Really? Oh, yeah. Machiavelli said he had virtue in spades. Got him pretty far, even if he did eventually lose power.
So even with all the virtue in the world, sometimes luck just runs out.
Sometimes. What else did Machiavelli think was important? He really believed in a good military.
Makes sense.
But forget mercenaries. He wanted citizen armies, people fighting for their own land, you know?
Interesting.
He even tried to set one up himself in Florence.
Wow, so he put his money where his mouth was? What about fortresses? Weren't those like essential for defense back then?
You'd think, right? But Machiavelli had kind of a surprising take on those. He thought relying on fortresses too much, it could actually make a prince weaker.
Wait, how does that work?
He thought it made the ruler too dependent on walls, not on the people.
Okay.
A prince hiding in his fortress, he loses touch, loses trust. He even said something like, I'm paraphrasing here, disarming your people is a bad idea.
Really?
Better to arm them, he said. Their weapons become yours. People who are suspicious become loyal, and those who are already loyal, they stay that way.
Huh. Trust the people. Arm the people. That's pretty progressive for the 16th century.
Right. There's more to Machiavelli than people think. He wasn't all about tyranny. He got that a strong connection between a ruler and the people, that was key.
This is fascinating, but it feels like we've only scratched the surface here. There's got to be more to this Machiavellian puzzle.
Oh, there's definitely more. And remember, the prince isn't just about grabbing power and holding on to it. It also shows Machiavelli's deep love for his country.
Wait, you're saying there's a patriotic side to this guy? Even an idealistic side?
Absolutely. We'll get into that, but first...
All right, you've got me hooked. How does patriotism fit in this whole cutthroat world of the prince?
Well, that last chapter, it gets really interesting. Machiavelli, he gets almost desperate. Like he's begging for a strong leader to step up, unite Italy.
He wanted to kick out the foreign powers.
Yeah.
Bring back Italy's glory days.
Exactly. Machiavelli, he believed a united Italy could be this major power. And he wanted a leader with, with that virtue, someone who could make it happen. Kind of inspiring in a weird way.
It's funny how some things never change. Strong leaders, foreign interference. It's like Machiavelli is giving us this playbook for understanding, I don't know, maybe even today's politics.
I think he is, in a way. And that's why The Prince is more than just some old book. It makes us ask those tough questions. What makes a good leader? Where's the line between idealism and, actually getting things done?
And are there times when you have to bend the rules? Maybe even break them?
That's the big one, isn't it? All right, let's go back to winning over the people. Machiavelli said fear wasn't enough, right?
Right.
He knew fear might keep people in line, but it doesn't win them over. A prince, a good leader, also needs to build goodwill. And one way to do that, he said, is through generosity.
Generosity. So just shower the people with gifts.
Right.
Make them happy.
There's a catch, though. This is Machiavelli we're talking about.
Of course there's a catch.
It's not just about being generous. It's about strategy.
Okay, I'm listening. Tell me more about this strategic generosity.
Machiavelli said a prince should be smart with his money.
Don't just throw it around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Put on a good show, fund some public works, have some festivals, reward the loyal followers, but don't just give everything away.
Why not? If it makes people happy.
You'll go broke. Then you have to raise taxes, and everybody hates you.
Ah, makes sense.
Machiavelli even used Pope Julius II as an example. This guy, he was super generous when he wanted to gain power, but bam, he becomes Pope, no more freebies, people weren't happy.
So be generous, but be smart about it.
Exactly. There's a balance, and then there's appearances. Machiavelli was big on appearances.
I mean,
Even if a prince has to, get his hands dirty to achieve his goals, he can't let people see that. He always has to look good.
so compassionate, trustworthy, all that.
You got it. Even if it's all an act.
So a little bit of, let's say, creative presentation is necessary.
You could say that. Machiavelli knew that people are emotional, they believe what they see, and a smart prince, well, he uses that.
It's all about PR, really. Managing how people see you. It's like he was way ahead of his time.
Absolutely. Think about modern politics. It's all about image, controlling the story. Very Machiavellian.
It is, isn't it? It's incredible how this guy from the 1500s can still be so relevant.
Right.
But let's get back to those Machiavellian tips. We've got generosity, we've got appearances, we've got the strong military. What about a prince's personal behavior? Did Machiavelli have anything to say about that?
Oh, yeah. He believed actions speak louder than words, And there were certain things a prince should never do. Things that would make him look weak or just, pathetic.
Give me an example.
Well, he wasn't a fan of too much cruelty.
Even Machiavelli.
Yeah, even Machiavelli. I mean, sometimes you got to use force, but it should be quick, decisive, and only when you absolutely have to. And he really hated fickleness.
Fickleness, like changing your mind all the time.
Exactly. A prince, a leader, needs to be consistent. People need to know where he stands.
So be strong, but don't be a tyrant. But also don't be a pushover. Got it.
That's Machiavelli in a nutshell. It's all about finding that balance.
It's almost like he's saying, look, the world's a tough place. You got to play the game, but play it smart.
Exactly. He's not preaching, he's giving practical advice.
Okay, so if we had to sum up Machiavelli's advice, like the top 3 things to remember, what would they be?
Ooh, That's a tough one. Well, first, definitely that virtue thing. Skills, boldness, adaptability, the whole package. Then remember fortune. You can't control it, but you can learn to, work with it.
Ride the waves.
Yeah. And don't forget the people. You need a strong military, but you also need the people on your side.
It all sounds so simple when you put it like that, but
Yeah.
is Machiavelli really just saying, do whatever it takes to win? Or is there more to it?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Some people see him as this cold, calculating guy, power above everything. But others say he's misunderstood, that he really loved his country and just wanted what was best for it.
So was he a villain? A hero?
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting whiplash trying to figure it out.
Just the thing about the prince, it doesn't give you easy answers. It makes you think about power, about leadership, about the choices we make.
It's like this puzzle box. Still messing with our heads after all these centuries. But before we wrap this up, I gotta ask, is there anything we can take from the prince and, actually use it in our own lives? I mean, most of us aren't exactly conquering territories or anything.
That's the thing, though. You absolutely can. Machiavelli was writing about princes, sure, but his insights about people, about how they act, those are timeless.
Okay, so like how? What's a Machiavellian tip for, the average person?
Well, he got that people are usually looking out for themselves. Ambition, the desire for, let's just call it influence. If you understand that, it can really change how you see things.
So be more aware, more strategic.
Yeah. Don't be naive, but you don't have to be cynical either. It's about knowing the rules of the game, whatever game you're playing.
I like that. What else can we borrow from Machiavelli's playbook?
Oh, definitely his focus on adapting. Things change, plans fall apart. Machiavelli knew that to succeed, you got to be able to adjust, go with the flow.
Don't get stuck in a rut. Don't be afraid to change course.
Exactly. And I think even that virtue idea, it can apply to more than just politics.
How do you mean?
Well, Machiavelli had his own definition, but at its core, it's about developing your skills, being brave, chasing after what you want.
So it's like personal excellence, not just about conquering other people, but conquering your own goals.
Exactly. I think Machiavelli would like that interpretation.
But what's the big takeaway here? For us, the listeners, living in this crazy world, what can we learn from this guy who's been dead for 500 years?
I think Machiavelli, he gives us a way to see the world more clearly. He reminds us to be strategic, to be adaptable, and to, build up our strength.
It's like he's saying, look, the world's not perfect, but you can still win.
Yeah. And remember, there's more to Machiavelli than meets the eye. He's complex, he makes you think. And maybe that's the point. He makes us think about power, about what's right and wrong, about what it means to be human.
It definitely makes you think. The Prince is not easy reading, but it's a book that stays with you.
And that's the mark of a powerful idea, isn't it? It challenges you, changes how you see things.
So if you're ready to really dive into political philosophy, Machiavelli's The Prince is waiting.
And if you want to see a different side of him, there's also the Discourses on Livy. Totally different, but just as fascinating.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Until next time, keep those minds sharp, keep asking questions, and keep exploring those big ideas. Thanks for joining us.